My name is Aidan Gilbride. I am from Scotland. I'm a senior here on the cross-country and track and field team. When I was initially planning to come over to the US, it was a very important decision for me because the decision came down to UMO and Franklin Pierce the first time round. My interview just went a lot better with Franklin Pierce. Obviously it didn't end too well for me. You know, in my first semester I really did hit the ground running. I made nationals in my first year as an individual, and anyone who is involved in collegiate athletics in the US knows how difficult that is to do. So running wise, that first semester was perfect. It couldn't have been any better. And then it was obviously the second semester that things started to go downhill a little bit. I started getting a hip pain in around, I want to say December. I didn't think much of it, you know, throughout my whole life I've had like the odd, you know, kind of pain and stuff like that, but you normally get over it. This just wasn't seeming to go away, and it got worse and worse and worse, and then I was diagnosed with a severe stress fracture, and pretty much just the entire season was cancelled for me. And then just, you know, a series of really poor and bad decisions, which I don't even want to go into, led to fallouts with the coaches, fallouts with the team, but ultimately, you know, that added on to homesickness. I just felt so alone, and so I decided to go home for that year, and I didn't know if I was coming back or not. That year, 2017 into 2018, was categorically the worst year of my life personally. I went through a lot of changes, and also as a person it was probably the biggest struggle I've ever had. I had absolutely no intention on returning to the US, let alone Franklin Pierce. I started having anxiety and panic attacks regularly. I felt like I'd failed, and that just brought on a huge depression for me. And I remember I turned to things that I maybe shouldn't have. For someone who was meant to be a recovering athlete, I was maybe going out a little bit too much with my friends, and I was certainly not doing myself any favours. And as we know, alcohol is it's a depressant, and it was just amplifying how I was feeling. And I remember one night specifically that will stick out for the rest of my life. My dad came to pick me up after I'd went out with some work colleagues, and he found me at the edge of a bridge. And, you know, we don't talk about the night and what was said in the car journey going home, because I think it was probably a really low point for me. And you know, my dad was then aware of it, because I remember my friends around the time didn't want to hang out with me. They thought I was just too depressing to hang around with. There was no positivity about me, and I just, you know, all I talked about was the past. I didn't want to focus on moving forward with my life. I just kept talking about the past, and all of these coupled with the fact that I just couldn't have that one constant in my life that was running was horrible. And it just all collectively came crashing down on me, and that year was probably the most difficult that I've had. But ultimately I picked up the phone and I phoned the coach here, and I said, listen, I need a fresh start, and if you'll take me, I can't thank you enough. And luckily enough, I got a second chance here, and I was never going to ruin that second chance. Within about a week of being here, I knew that I was in the right place. It was a difficult, probably first couple of years here, and I would describe the journey as more a roller coaster of emotions and physical barriers. And I kept getting diagnosed for about 2 years with stress fractures, which was hard for me because I thought, like, I'm doing this to myself, like I'm clearly not doing something right. And then in 2019, I went to a private institute back home and got a scan. I got as much done to it as possible to just try and find out what it was. I basically had a genetic problem with my hip, and that it's called FAI hip impingement, if anyone knows what it is. And basically they said, right, there's a lot of tears in here, and there's a lot of severe damage, and we need to operate, and we need to do the surgery. He was honest with me, as doctors tend to be. You know, they can be a little bit brutal and honest, and he said, I don't know if you'll run again. So he prepared me for the idea that running wasn't in my future. But he said, you know, if you don't get this done, you're looking at a hip replacement in your early 20s, which is never what you want to hear. The procedure was a success. I did come out of it with severe arthritis just from years and years of running on it, and he told me that it would be a long process, 6 to 8 weeks on crutches, and probably about 6 months of rehab before I would be able to start really doing anything normal again and running. I remember that year was basically just a rehab year. I always call that rehab year. And when I went home in the winter break, basically I was running again. And this is the only time I blame myself. I overdid it a little bit, and I gave myself patellar tendonitis in the knee. So after all that rehab and all that work getting back, I basically injured myself. And I was really looking forward to racing again. And it was horrible, you know, it led to a lot of long hours in the training room here and working with the athletics trainers. And then, just as the pain started to wear away, as everyone knows, I think people are sick of hearing it by now, we were hit by the coronavirus, so I had to go home. But what it did provide me was a chance to come back in good fitness and healthy. So I basically just made sure that I exercised every day and kept my running up, and strangely just found myself back in a good place again. I wasn't 100% when I got here, but I'm very near feeling good about myself once again for the first time in a long time now. I've learned over the last couple of years as I've matured greatly. While I've been here at UMO, I've really changed as a person, developed as a student and as an athlete and as a person, and I've got better because of it. All that stuff that happened, all the fighting in our demons and going through, you know, anxiety and a little bit of depression at times, I believe that made me a stronger person. I honestly believe that any sport discipline, that 90% of it is a mental battle more than physical. You know, the physical battle's always tough, you know that's always going to be tough, but fighting with your own head at times is one of the most difficult things I've ever had to go through. And I'm not going to sit here and preach to you or anyone else at the school or anyone else watching that I am the example of mental toughness. I can sometimes struggle, and I can sometimes really find myself in a place where I'm like, you know, I need to battle back again. I never gave up. I always stayed strong in the belief that I could get back and that I could get through it. And I honestly thought at times I was never going to recover properly, and eventually I was just going to have to quit. And there were times I nearly did quit. There honestly were times where I woke up some mornings, I would go back to my room sometimes and I would have a cry. Like, I just didn't know why I was putting myself through this kind of pain and misery, but you know, I don't regret it. Some of the people that have stuck by me over the last couple of years, as cliche as it is, family. My parents were the best parents in the world. I don't care what anyone says. They've stuck by me through so many difficult times and so many tough times that I can't believe they're still with me. I have a running coach back home. I literally left him to go and train under another coach, but he is still there. And his name's Jamie Clements, just so you know. He's still there as a shoulder to cry on and someone to go to for advice, despite me leaving him as a coach. Like, he is still there for me, and I can't thank him enough for what he's done over the last couple of years. And certainly the coaches that I've had here, Matt Van Leerup, and you know, the relationship I'm building with Jackie Kirby now is fantastic. They've all been so patient with me, and I cannot thank them enough. And I just feel I actually can't thank any of these people enough, but thank you. And thank you to the friends who have kind of always been there for me too and never gave up on me. And you know, thanks for getting my smile back again.